Okay, how's it going, folks? Welcome to today's class. We're going to be taking a look at some speeches. We're going to be starting to think about critical analysis and what form that should take, how that should look, why it needs to be the way that it needs to be. It's going to be a relatively informal lecture. Um, we've got speeches coming up this week, and I want you guys to be really focusing on. Oh my God. Okay, there we go. Okay, looks like we're back. Are we back? Yeah, it looks like we're back. All right. Let me know if you guys can you guys hear me? Hang on one second. Yeah. Okay. Good. There's audio. All right. Perfect. Yeah. Sorry. The stream has been being weird, and so yeah. Let me preface that. I know this video was supposed to happen last week. Um, I had somebody asked me whether or not somebody emailed me and asked, is the video up? I can't find it anywhere. Blah blah blah. Other than these lectures, if I ever upload a video, like pre-record and upload a video, I will always let you know when I've done that. I'll never upload anything and then just sort of expect you to find it. The only thing that I expect you guys to attend are these Monday classes. And I'll always let you know if the class is not going to be held. Uh, so that's the first thing. The second thing, yeah, like I said, speeches due this Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Alaska time. Um, and what we're gonna watch today is something that, like I said, I want you to keep in mind is sort of like it's supposed to be more more. It's not even really fair to call it an informal lecture. It's going to inform the philosophy of the class. It's going to tell you more about the philosophy of how I teach and what I really want you guys to get out of this class, what I get from communication, why I like teaching this class, how much I get from communication, all of that sort of thing. So it's going to be a lot of things sort of intertwined with each other. The first thing that I want to say is that what we're going to be watching today are going to be political speeches, American political speeches. Uh, I have no particular bent one way or the other. We're going to be talking about a variety of people from both parties, from all sorts of different parties. And this is not meant to incite any kind of political debate. That's not even really what we're going to be talking about here. So the two videos that I wanted to take a look at today are both going to be speeches by American presidents. And the reason for that is that politics tends to employ what is called rhetorical language. Now, when I wrote my master's thesis, the sort of like main text that I sourced a lot of the conceptual framework of my speech from, the preface talked about how the use of the word rhetoric has come to mean empty language and how that's not really what rhetoric is. So the sense that we're going to be talking about rhetoric in here is in the sense of figurative language. All right, rhetoric here means really what rhetoric means is just the language of a speech, the language used in a speech that is meant to either inform or persuade or whatever the intention might be, which that's informing and persuading is actually not, neither of those are the point of this particular speech that we're watching, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But oh my God, okay, there we go. Okay, yeah. Oh, and I do want to say, okay, so the reason that I wasn't able to make this video last week is because, like I told you guys, I was moving apartments, and what ended up happening was that when we cleaned out our old place, and when we got into our new place, the fridge wasn't working, and so we had a whole bunch of food that we didn't know what we were going to do with. So there was a lot of drama in dealing with that, and I was very unhappy with our property management company. So I was really like badgering them to get everything done, and then we had to we had service workers at our place and blah blah blah, and it just became an ordeal. And so I was just I was just really like dealing with that on top of grading outlines and all of that sort of thing. So I just didn't have time to like sit down and fully flesh out a video like this. So that's the first thing. The thing that I wanted to say about this video that we're about to watch here, I think I said it in the first week of class, but speech is a sister discipline of philosophy, which means that a lot of what we do in this class can be tied to the ancient Greeks. And so what that means is that the Greeks like to do everything in threes. So you have informative speaking, you have persuasive speaking, and then you also have what's called ceremonial speaking. I have a couple of colleagues who they used to do, I don't even know if they still do it anymore, they employ a ceremonial speaking module in their classes. I don't. I think it's probably the least useful. It's not that it's the least useful, it's that it's the most forgiving. It's the most forgiving of the kinds of speech. Like, it's not something where accuracy achieves the thing that it's trying to achieve. Oh my god. And I believe the internet cut off again. Okay. And that is the other thing that I wanted to say. At my old place, I had my computers were wired directly into our modem. Right now, the office, our office room is further away from the router, so I don't have cables that can reach. So I just ordered those, and I'm waiting on them. They actually arrive in a couple of days. But I'm on Wi-Fi right now, so my connection is spotty. If it just becomes too bad, then I'll just get you guys to. I did this lecture for the class before you. If it's unwatchable, I'll just get you guys to watch that video because I'm doing the exact same thing. But I want to do this again like this just to give people who want to ask questions the chance to ask a question. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it, and I'll start talking more about analysis here in a sec. All right.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, and my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Okay, so we've already seen a lot of examples of figurative language. Democracy has prevailed. We've been through a crucible, all of that sort of thing. Now, I'm going to flip to Dwight Eisenhower's farewell speech on the last speech that he gave holding the office of president. Let's take a look at that before we dive into some analysis.
This evening, I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, and to share a few final thoughts with you, my countrymen. Like every other citizen, I wish the new president and all who will labor with him Godspeed. I pray that the coming years will be blessed with peace and prosperity for all. Our people expect their president and the Congress to find essential agreement on issues of great moment, the wise resolution of which will better shape the future of the nation. My own relations with the Congress, which began on a remote and tenuous basis when, long ago, a member of the Senate appointed me to West Point, have since ranged to the intimate during the war and immediate post-war period, and finally to the mutually interdependent during these past 8 years.
Okay, folks, so what we've seen right now are examples of figurative language between Joe Biden and Dwight Eisenhower. Now, the first thing that I'm going to tell you, so because in this class, because we don't have a classroom environment where people are going to be reacting to our speeches, where we're going to be able to see people's faces, or we are going to see how we react to speeches that we've never heard before. What I'm going to walk you through are my feelings watching Joe Biden's inauguration speech. So at first, because I streamed it live the day that it happened, right? And so, my feeling when it first happened was that I was like, it seems forced. It seems like he's forcing the rhetoric. It seems like what I felt like he was trying to do was he was trying to emulate what people liked about the president that he served under, which is Barack Obama. And because Barack Obama is widely reputed to be a great public speaker, and he truly is. We're actually going to analyze an Obama speech later on in the semester, but for me, and when we flip back to the Joe Biden speech, I'll sort of point out when he does things like that and why I think that's what he was doing. Without obviously going into too much speculation. But what I realize is an implicit bias for me is, well, okay, Biden's using figurative language that when it hit my ear, it sounded wrong because Biden was the one saying it. Because I know that he probably doesn't speak that way, because I experienced him as vice president. I experienced him during the debate. Has it come back? Okay. I believe it's back? Question mark? No. Okay, there we go. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. At 12:45? Yeah, it's staggering a lot. I know, folks. I'm gonna keep trying to go. I'm gonna keep trying to push through it. If it just doesn't work out, like if I have another big lapse like that, I might just call it and then send you guys a link to the video for the earlier class, because again, it's gonna contain a lot of the same information. But yeah, Lucas or anybody else, just let me know if you guys can't hear what I'm saying. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I got what you were saying. Okay. So where were we? So yeah. So what I was saying. Yeah, Joe Biden. The figurative language that he was using, it was just sort of hitting my ear wrong. That Eisenhower speech is one of my favorite speeches. It talks about something called the military-industrial complex, where the government allows private companies to profiteer off of governmental war waging and blah blah blah. I really like that speech. I think it's very deep. Listening to it with the purpose of analyzing it, however, I realized that, I mean, even Eisenhower, we have this impulse when something is like old timey. You see, this dude's named Dwight Eisenhower. It's a very old timey name. He's in black and white. It's grainy footage. He's speaking with a particular accent that you don't really hear that many people speak with anymore. That's like transatlantic, like, so, see here, this is what we were going to say, wherefore. You just don't really hear people speaking that way anymore. So when you listen to Eisenhower speak, you have a tendency to think like, yeah, he probably employs that kind of rhetorical language. It's just normal for him. But really, it's not. I mean, he's also deliberately employing that kind of language, just like Joe Biden is doing. And it's just because of that historical bias that I have that, like, from my perspective, it sounds more natural on Eisenhower than it does on Biden. 60 years from now, somebody watching this Biden speech might think the exact same thing about whoever is delivering the inaugural address at the time, right? So that's what, when I say analysis has many layers, it really, there's so many variables, right? There's your implicit bias. There's the speaker's implicit bias. There's like the words that they're choosing to use. There's just so many, like, there's your interpretation of it. There's what they intended by it. There are so many variables that come into play when you're analyzing communication, that and really anywhere where anything you can latch onto and be like, oh, I understand that this is what's happening, you're always going to benefit from that, right? Whether you're trying to communicate with somebody to inform them or to persuade them, understanding how they tick, like being able to put yourself in their position, really does a lot for informing how you can craft your words to better make that person understand. And that's difficult with one person. It's of course very difficult when you have a lot of people that you're trying to connect with. And that's the thing that Joe Biden is trying to do here. His, like, contextually, obviously, because most of us are watching the news nowadays, because it's kind of, we feel like it's kind of a fraught period, but what he's trying to do is present himself as the bipartisan candidate. Right, like, you know, if you're conservative, if you're liberal, you know, I'm sort of like this speech is trying to lasso everybody in. That's a difficult thing to do. He's trying to do it in a way where he's not speaking to two people, to the two audiences individually. He's trying to sort of nab everybody. He's what he's trying to do is create a feeling of camaraderie between all of these disparate people. That's what he's trying to do with his words, right? Because what politicians have is their rhetoric. For the most part, the average person doesn't look into like what's happening in congressional proceedings, what laws are trying to be passed. It's very difficult. There's a lot of technical language. It's hard to navigate the website. It's hard to reach out to these people. I worked as a reporter, and I even think that it's very difficult to navigate those things. I always had to get clerks to help me out. You know, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? What is this phrase? They use a lot of acronyms, all of that sort of thing. It's very difficult to navigate. So when politicians need to reach out to their constituents, they do it with these kinds of speeches. And the more that they can project an air of reaching out and connecting with you, the better that the easier time that they're going to have trying to do that. A long time ago, I watched this heavy metal documentary where they interviewed the lead singer of the band Iron Maiden. His name is Bruce Dickinson, and he was like, what I'm trying to do is, even in a stadium of 50,000 people, I'm trying to find the person that's way at the back, and I'm trying to make them feel like I'm singing directly to them. The more you can make people feel that way, the better, the more effective of communicator you're going to be, right? And that's something that I personally, as a teacher, pride myself on, is really making people feel like, and it's not like a put on, it's not like a con. Generally, I don't like to say anything. Generally, I won't say anything that I don't believe in, you know? And if the department makes me do something that I think is stupid, but I have to do it because I work for the department, then that's one of the things that actually, and despite many other jobs that I've had where I couldn't complain about the protocol, being a teacher is cool because you get to complain about it, and you don't really get penalized for it. Like, I still have to grade using the schemas that they want me to grade with, which I don't like, but I can air that displeasure and I don't really get penalized for it, because everybody's got an opinion on how things are graded, but everybody also understands that some things have to be standardized, and that's, I think, a compromise that I have to live with. But the fact that I can say that to you guys it's very meaningful, all right? Because there's not a lot of jobs. I've had jobs where, like, you really can't. I've had jobs in advertising where, like, you couldn't talk back to your boss, or you couldn't, you know, you were just supposed to, like, be like, oh, okay, I'll do that, and then figure out a way to, like, do the thing that they need. This is very stupid, right? But going back to what I was talking about, I like to be as on level with my students as I can possibly be, because I don't really see a reason not to be. When you become a teacher, they make you write a teaching philosophy, sort of like a statement, or like a protocol. How do you teach? What is your teaching philosophy? Many years ago, when I was in my undergrad, I had a philosophy teacher who, what I learned from him was not philosophy, and in general, being a teacher, it's not about telling people what to think. It's about teaching people the way to think about things, right? And that's not to be like, when I say the way to think, again, I don't mean like what to think about certain things. I mean how you should analyze, right? Like how you take a piece of information and begin dissecting it to understand what are the components that made it up, okay? And again, the better that you can do that, the more effective, especially in the humanities, that you can be. This isn't math. This isn't science. This isn't something where you put one thing in and it comes out a specific way every single time. There are a million variables that are incalculable when you're dealing with other people. And so the better that you can be at analysis, the more you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, the more you're aware of your own biases, of other people's biases, what I was talking about before, the more effective you're going to be at doing this thing that we're trying to do. Okay, and again, you can even tell there's different ways of going about it. You can obviously tell that the way that I'm speaking to you guys now is not the way that I conduct my lectures usually, because there I have like a formal. There's a lecture. There's stuff that I need to get across. It's written out explicitly, and that's the thing that I have to teach you. This is on like another level. This is like another layer. All right. In your outlines, the feedback that I'll have given many of you is like, hey, you did a good job structuring this. You did a good job with your citations. That you did a good job filling it out. All of that sort of thing. That's what an outline can help you with. It can help you structure a speech. What an outline can't do is help you with your use of rhetorical language. That is one of the reasons why I want us to watch this speech now, is because they're employing this use of rhetorical language where they care about, they're not doing it for a grade, they're doing it because they need people to be convinced of the thing that they're saying, right? And so for them, they have skin in the game. And when you have skin in the game, it changes things. It's not, oh, these are like, I mean, you can meet all the criteria of the rubric and get an A. It doesn't mean, and this is a point of contention between a lot of the teachers in the communications department, where I'm of the belief that I can teach you guys how to structure a speech, but knowing how to reach an audience, that's something that you develop over practice. It's difficult to do it over a semester. This is a baby step. What we're doing here is the first step towards making you understand what that thing is, so that you begin to be able to develop it. And that's not just your speech classes, that's everything, okay? But there are other teachers that'll be like, no, you can teach a student to write you can teach a student to write a speech in a semester, and I think that's like utter nonsense. And not just utter nonsense, it's insulting to people that have spent a long time trying to perfect the craft of speech. The thing about speaking and the thing about trying to reach an audience, especially when we do persuasive speaking, what you will understand is, if you think about the phrase, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and then you think about how many times you've been at Barnes & Noble or whatever, and you're like, oh man, this book has a really cool cover, and it at least makes you pick up the book. The art of speech writing is to, like, everybody's got something to say. Some people are trying to say the same thing as other people, but they just do it better, all right? They do it in a way that's more effective. What you're trying to do in the craft of speech writing is in making, like, and so for example, if we take the hook in our introduction, right? If the hook is really good, if you can immediately like make your audience latch onto your speech and make them intrigued, you've already done a good job. It's the packaging, it's the cover of the book, it's not the content of the book. But what you've done effectively is grab that audience member and start reeling them in. Now they're invested. Now they're listening to what you have to say. What we're looking at here is a 22-minute speech. It's difficult in a 22-minute speech to have people's attention all the time. And that's actually something that our outline helps with, because you're moving a minute on the introduction, a minute on main point A, main point B, main point C, your conclusion. You're always moving, and you're transitioning. Your audience knows where you're going. You previewed your points. That structure helps your audience stay engaged and stay interested. Obviously, your content has to be good and well researched, but it helps them stay interested. And something like this, in ceremonial speaking, there's no real outline. This dude hasn't this dude hasn't outlined what he's going to say. His audience doesn't know exactly where he's going to go. So he has to be effective at retaining their interest over a period of 22 minutes. I personally, if I needed to sit there and give a 22-minute formal speech, that takes a very long time to write. Like, you could spend 3 or 4 weeks probably like crafting a good 20-minute speech that's going to have like points, bam, 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 bam. That's going to have a structure that your audience can follow very easily, right? Here, in ceremonial speaking, we have an idea of where he's going to go, and we know the things he's probably going to talk about. We have no idea how he's going to talk about them. So let's continue. Let's listen on.
So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service.
Fun fact, by the way, when I started university in 2008, I was at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon, and President Jimmy Carter was the first person I saw speak as a college student. He was lecturing in a hall. The hall was very, very full, and it was reserved for VIPs. And the hall, like the entrance to the hall, was also full. So I actually watched it in the courtyard outside of the auditorium on screens. But it was very cool to see Jimmy Carter speak.
I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken. The oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we, the people, who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain.
So this is what I was sort of talking about before. This is why I think that the speech is very speechy, or like speechwritery, because it's not that he's saying the words in a way that feels a little bit empty. I think he could definitely do more to like it's a lot of it is his physicality. He's also an old guy, so that could be a factor in it, but it seems like it's a speech, and I'll tell you guys this all the time. When it's very obvious when somebody has memorized a speech. He's probably looking at a teleprompter, and he's probably familiar with like, oh, this is this part, this is that part. But his physicality, his lack of, he's a little stiff. He's sort of like flying through the speech, and he's shoving a lot of figurative language in there. The other thing is that he said, we have a lot to heal, a lot to restore, a lot to rebuild, a lot to give, whatever it might be. That repetition that you see, that's a move of like that's also like a very speech writery move of like reinforcing an idea in your audience's mind, and you'll see like stand-up comics do a similar thing where they're trying to like convey a premise, so they'll keep repeating that premise. To really get their audience to understand it, because if they don't understand the premise, they're not going to understand the joke, and that's important. That's this thing that stand-up comics realize, and obviously they don't have speech writers, so it's interesting to see that both of these people that have to address large groups of people have sort of came to the same conclusion, independent of each other. I have no like proof that I'm saying that. It's more like they might have I don't know what the foundation of it is, but it. I would be surprised if it didn't happen organically for both parties. Let me just say that at least. But anyway, so that's sort of what I'm saying. That's sort of the point that I'm trying to convey here, is that when you're giving your speech, it's great to use rhetorical language, and you should use rhetorical language. You should be metaphorical. You should. I was talking about the art of speech writing. Another part of the art of speech writing is conveying complex topics using what you would call big words, a varied vocabulary. Okay, like I said, I've said this before. There are words that describe the thing. You're expanding your vocabulary. That establishes credibility in yourself, and it establishes. Not only that, when you do that, your audience feels like, and it's obvious that it like really relates to the thing that you're saying. It really helps your audience feel like you mean what you're saying. Okay. So again, when I talk about rhetorical language earlier, I was talking about the structure of your outline. That's sort of like this very superficial level of speech writing. It's an introductory class. It's the way that we like wean you guys into what writing a speech is. The kind of speech that Biden's giving here is another layer. You know, they're starting to use. It's not just like, how do I write it's not just like what structurally, how do I write something that can be considered a speech. It's, how am I packaging the speech? How am I writing it? How am I writing it in the best possible way? So it's another level. In the other class, I talked about how we were gonna, and I just told you guys that we're gonna analyze a speech by Obama. And I was thinking, while I was thinking of like the material that I was gonna give you guys, I was like, well, are we gonna analyze any Trump speeches? If we're gonna be looking at different politicians' speeches, and I was trying to think of the effectiveness of Trump's speeches, and the thing is, he's a very controversial guy. People feel very strongly. People either love him or they really hate him. You know, you're going to find very, very few people that are that feel moderately about Donald Trump. Whether you like him or whether you hate him, he was very effective using the tools that he employed. And I think that if we're looking at the speech as one level, there's audience analysis, demographic analysis that goes into what Joe Biden is doing. I think and obviously there's use of things like psychographics, like understanding the psychology of your audience. It doesn't play as important a part in a speech like this that Joe Biden is giving. It does, for sure, because he's touching on points that he knows people want to hear. But he's not doing it in a way that is as obvious as how Donald Trump does it, because when Donald Trump speaks, he's playing on things like he's very much tapping into very viscerally the emotions of his audience. So I would say that Trump speeches are an even deeper layer of understanding how to speak. I don't know that we're going to go too in depth into that. It's a little advanced for this class, and to be totally honest, it's not a subject, like it's one of those things that has been so discussed over the last 4 years that it's honestly just boring. But like I said, I do think it's worthwhile to discuss, and we will discuss a little bit of it. But I think it's a little advanced for the class, and it requires a little bit of understanding. We're gonna talk about later on in the semester. We're gonna talk about demographics, psychographics, all of that sort of thing, and it's gonna play a little bit of a part into how you guys write your speeches. But it's going to be more about making you aware of those things rather than getting into like really deep analysis of those things. It's just outside the purview of this class. Like, we already have a lot to do. That's like an entire semester's worth of work on top of the stuff that we already have to do. So obviously we're not going to discuss it at that level of detail, right? But not all the speeches that we're going to look at are going to be political. Some of them are going to be, some of them are going to be funny. Some of them are going to be like kind of serious. Some of them are going to be a mix of serious and funny. And all of them are going to employ rhetoric across an entire across an entire spectrum. Some people are going to be very good at it. Some people are going to be pretty bad at it. Some people are going to have, so like the Obama speech that we're going to watch, for example, later on the semester, actually pretty soon here in the next couple of weeks, but this week I just want you guys to focus on your speeches that you're going to deliver. He is very good at making you feel like he's being very folksy and, you know, talking off the cuff, when really it's a speech that he has memorized like almost to the word, but he just knows the moves, you know, to make you feel like he's delivering it, you know, in a very charming way for the first time. And again, and that requires a very acute, very intuitive sense of your audience, being able to read the room and respond to the feeling in the room. And that's a very difficult thing for some people, especially people that are new to giving speeches, and they're still dealing with the nerves of giving speeches, and that's sort of the thing that's at the forefront of their mind, rather than somebody that's done 30, 40, 50, 100 speeches. And now they're thinking about like the mechanics, like how do I craft this thing, and like they're not dealing with the technical aspects of it anymore. They're not worried about the technical aspects. Now they're sort of like starting to push the boundaries of what it is that of what this thing is that they're trying to do. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I don't have that much more. I mean, everything that we watched now really conveys what I wanted to talk about. I know a lot of these things may be very high concept, and if you didn't understand something, please let me know. Again, it's not something that's it's not something, even when we do analysis, it's something that I want you to keep in mind, but it's not something that I'm gonna need you to like explicitly, you know, like this is critical analysis and using critical theory and all that sort of thing. I'm not expecting that from you guys at all. I just want you, I think it's very important that you guys understand what that is, because especially if you're going to be going into academia, if you're going to be pursuing any kind of advanced degree, that is important, and you're going to talk about that a lot. But even if you're not, even if you're going into business, even if you're going into understanding something like what people were saying about, so for instance, the conversations that were happening around the GameStop stock, like it being inflated, and then what Congress is trying to do with it, being able to analyze intentions does a lot for. So let's say I have many friends who studied finance and economics. I come from the Middle East, so finance, economics, just general like there's a lot of value placed on money and accumulating a lot of money. So many of my friends studied economics, finance, accounting, all of that sort of thing. So for them, their job is contingent on their ability to pick up on these patterns. So even though ultimately at the end of the day, they're doing a lot of work with numbers, the things that come before that has to do with understanding people. And the better that they can understand people, the more effective they can be down the line at their actual job, right? So it comes into play in a variety of ways. So I do think that's an important thing for you guys to keep in mind. Again, it's a very high concept. If you want to really get into that sort of thing, if you're even somewhat philosophically inclined, good text to look. If you look at like introductions to Immanuel Kant, you look at some of if you want to look at the ancient Greeks, Parmenides, Socrates, all of those guys. They all talk about the art of rhetoric in some way or another, the art of analysis in some way or another. Like I said, it's outside the purview of this class. Getting too deep into it, it's outside the purview of this class. I want to introduce you guys to what it means to be analytical and to think critically, because critical thinking, I think, is one of those words that they throw around in elementary school and middle school and all that, without really teaching you the theory behind critical thinking. Okay, and now you guys are in university. I think it's important for you to start understanding that, and it's something that I use in my day-to-day life. It's something that you will probably, you'll start to pick up on how you can use it in your day-to-day life, and how it can be beneficial to you in your day-to-day life. So I think that's important for those reasons. But that's all I'm going to say on the topic for now. Just a couple of housekeeping things at the end here. I did tell you guys that that I sent you guys an announcement saying that speeches are due on Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Alaska time. If you did not submit, generally, I think most people were I don't remember for the FX2 class particularly. I think there was an issue actually with your class with a lot of people not sending me outlines. However, if you haven't sent me an outline yet, I cannot let you give your speech for full points. If you didn't send me an outline, but you do send me a speech, the maximum that I can give you on your speech is 60%, which means that you're losing 2.5% off your total grade for not handing in the outline. But then you're also losing 4% on your speech because you didn't hand in that outline. So not handing in the outline and submitting a speech means that you lose 6.5% off your total grade, which is a huge chunk. It's a huge chunk. All right. Not handing in an outline, not handing in a speech, this first speech, that's 12.5% of your grade. That's a huge amount. If you didn't hand in the outline, if you hand it in to me this week, I will edit it. I won't give you a grade for it. You'll still get a 0 on the outline, but that still means that you will be able to get full points for your speech. So it's a form of damage control. I'll edit it. I'll always edit work that you submit to me, even if you're not going to get a grade for it, if you want me to edit it. So if you didn't turn in an outline to me and you want to turn it in, send me an email. Don't pop it into your Google Drive because I'm not going to look at it anymore. I'm not going to go prowling through everybody's drive to see who handed in an outline and who didn't because it's late. If you hand it in the outline, put it in your drive, send me an email, tell me, hey, I submitted the outline. I'd like to get it edited, please. I will edit it for you, all right? And I'll let you give your speech. And you'll be able to give the speech for full points. You won't lose any points for not submitting the outline on your speech. You'll be able to give the speech for full points. Please, if you I can't stress this enough. I've told you guys I'm not gonna and by the way, if you don't hand in an outline, I'm not gonna send you an email being like, hey, you didn't hand in the outline. I'm just gonna give you a 0 for it. Okay, you have 4 days. You lose 10%. Every day that you don't hand it in, up till a total of 40%. After those 4 days, you just get a 0 immediately. So if you haven't turned in the outline by now, unfortunately, you're going to get a 0 on it. But please hand it in so that I can let you give your speech. That's my class policy. You don't hand in an outline, I won't let you give a speech. And that's because in a classroom environment, I need to know, like if you're going to talk about a subject that is, if you're going to talk about something like sexual assault, or you're going to talk about something like if you're going to use vulgar words, or you're going to talk about something that might be very graphic, I need to know because I need to be able to warn students. That's not going to apply in this class in particular, but I think it's still good practice, and that's why I make the outlines mandatory. And then it's also so that I know that you know, so that you understand what it is that I'm trying to teach you. So please, if you haven't turned in your outline, please turn it in. Again, you won't get points for it, but I'll at least give you your speech. I also had a couple people ask me or like leave me notes on their outlines that said, I didn't know how much of this I should fill out. If you hand in an outline, even if it's like crappily filled out or only partially filled out, I still give you the points for turning in the outline. It's just that I only look at your outlines one time. And so like if you add... Are we back? Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up before the internet cuts off again. Main point, submit your outline if you haven't submitted it. Speeches are due 11:59 p.m. Alaska time. I've left your content. I've made available the week 5 content. It shows you exactly how you need to. It shows you exactly what you need to do in order to get a. In order to do the speech properly. Like how you're supposed to set up the camera, all of that sort of thing. It's all there. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email and let me know. All right? I'm going to give you guys 45 seconds to a minute just to ask me any questions that you may have, and then I'm going to let you go. Something that I learned, by the way, today is that when you have a camera pointing downwards up at you and you're watching yourself drink, I've got a monitor behind the laptop screen that I'm using to stream off of so that I can watch, so that I can see that things are happening properly and that I can read chat. I can also watch myself drink, and it's not appealing. It's not an attractive thing. folks. I think people started to leave, so I'm going to give you like 30 seconds here. If nobody's got any questions, then I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, always feel free to shoot me an email. Sometimes it might take me a couple of days to respond. I have over 100 students, and this week I was grading outlines and dealing with all the stuff that I told you that I was dealing with. So sometimes it takes me a couple of days. And I have no problem with you like sending me an email. If I haven't responded after 2 days, feel free to like resend me the email and be like, hey, you didn't reply to me. I'd like an answer. Blah blah blah. That's totally fine. All right, but I keep track of everything that everybody sends me, so I'll never like miss an email. It just might take me a few days to respond to you. All right, okay, folks. So if nobody's got any questions, then I'll let you go. Feel free to email me. Remember, speech is due 11:59 p.m. this upcoming Sunday. All right. Good luck, folks. Take it easy.